Thank you for joining us today for a very timely and relevant webinar, Preventing Claims in this Hot Seller's Market. I'm Laura Prouse with Crest Insurance Services. Today, we welcome attorney Jim Messick from White & Steel. Jim's practice focuses on litigation, and he has been defending real estate professionals for 20 years. He is also appointed to the Colorado Bar Association Real Estate Section Council, and Jim has worked with Crest for over 10 years as a member of our legal panel. Along with Jim, we have Dave Miller, Regional Vice President with Fidelity National Home Warranty. Dave manages the Crest Advantage Home Warranty Plan, which ties in with Crest's E&O insurance. We have a lot to cover, so we'll get started. Dave, I'll hand it off to you.
Oh, thanks so much, Laura, for having us today. This seminar, I think, is going to be great for not only all of your Crest E&O members in Colorado, but just real estate professionals in general. And Jim, in speaking to him, has such an amazing pulse on what's going on there. I think your viewers are really going to show and have value in this. I want to talk real quick, if I may, about Fidelity National Home Warranty and how they have teamed up with Crest Insurance, the Crest E&O, to provide their members with a little bit extra protection when they use what we call the Crest Advantage Home Warranty. You can see that logo right behind me. It's a Fidelity National Home Warranty product, and it's called the Crest Advantage Plan, and it gives added features and protection to all of your members that have E&O insurance in Colorado. Number one, if the agent or broker is named in a lawsuit on the transaction and they placed the Crest Advantage Home Warranty on that transaction, and there's a lawsuit later and there's still a Crest E&O member, they could get their E&O deductible reduced up to $5,000. And in many cases of your Colorado E&O members, that's going to give them a zero deductible, which is a great value. We also have something that's called the Seller's Protection Plan. And when they place the warranty on the transaction and the Crest E&O member represents the sellers on the transaction, they're going to automatically enroll their sellers for $50,000 of E&O. Now, in this competitive market, when people are trying to figure out, how do I have more value than the real estate office or the agent down the street? How do I get this listing? The Crest E&O members on this call have a very competitive advantage over the other agents that are not with Crest. And that if they sit down with that seller, they're going to tell them they're going to do a great job listing their property. They might do a little staging. They're going to bring in their own photographer. But because they're going to list their property with, in this case, Dave Miller Realty, they're going to place the Crest Advantage Home Warranty on the transaction for the buyers. And when they do, it's going to protect the seller for $50,000 of E&O in the event they get named in a lawsuit. And Jim can probably chime in or talk later to it, but about 95% of the E&O lawsuits out there are buyers suing sellers. So when you represent sellers, you have a little bit more of a target on your back. Using the Crest Advantage Home Warranty really, really gives you added value as a listing agent, but protects your sellers down the road. And then the third feature of the warranty is that it's 13 months of protection versus 12. I mean, who doesn't want an extra month of protection? Keeping those buyers happy with that coverage for their plumbing, their electrical, their dishwasher, their range, their oven, their microwave, and all those items has tremendous value. So Fidelity National Home Warranty, our account executive and our sales executive in Colorado is Robert Bird, and he will be on distributing this seminar to you guys, but he represents the product, and anything that you guys need, he can help you with that with an order or explanation of the benefits or anything like that. So that's my spiel on the home warranty. Great value to all the members that have Crest for E&O in Colorado. So thank you for that, Jim. Let's bring you in. I mean, you can't turn the channel and not see how crazy the real estate market over the entire country is going right now. We're going to obviously talk about Colorado. What is causing this unprecedented market?
Good morning, Dave, and good morning, Laura. First of all, thanks to both of you and to Crest for allowing me to speak to your insureds, your clients today. So yes, here in Denver, in the metro area, and all over Colorado, some places more than others, the real estate market has hit a new level of insanity with just the limited amount of inventory, the demand. Obviously, we've got the effects of the pandemic, We've got investors coming in who want a safe place for their money to guard against inflation. And so we just have this convergence. And in the meantime, there's been a lack of development to meet the demand on top of affordable housing requirements. So it is like this perfect storm. And so I was looking at some statistics from the Denver metro area brokers, this going back to 2008, and we seem to have crossed this twilight zone with respect to inventory versus demand. And in July of 2020, for the first time ever, according to the DMAR stats, the monthly end active listings dipped below the month-end closings. So we are seeing more closings per month than active listings per month. And it's just, like I say, the twilight zone. And so this market is just creating all new sorts of claims we never imagined we'd ever see or expect to see, that we're having to deal with.
Right. Well, and I spoke to the importance of, for the CRES E&O members on this call, the importance of and the features of using a Fidelity National Home Warranty on the transaction. But can you speak to home warranties in general? I know, if I'm guessing, they're probably only on about maybe 25% of the transactions in your state. And in this market, maybe even less, which we can talk about later. But what value do they have on transactions in your state?
Dave, they bring a tremendous value, not only for the professional real estate brokers I represent, but also their clients. And that includes whether they're the seller's agent or the buyer's agent. This is a product that benefits both the buyers, obviously, if something goes wrong with an appliance, let's say, or they discover something that may have or should have been disclosed, and then that protects the seller, or potentially protects the seller, depending on what the claim is. I just think it's a great resource for sellers to have, especially in this market where buyers are paying a premium. Sellers are not willing to do inspection, objection type repairs. They want to sell it as is. Well, that's not going to protect them necessarily when a claim arises and the buyer decides to bring a claim. And I can tell you, in my entire career of defending these claims for failure to disclose, failure to advise against the broker, where they also bring claims against the seller, I've never seen a homeowner's policy step up and protect the seller, ever. Those claims are just routinely denied. And sellers don't even fight them anymore here in Colorado. I've never seen a successful deck action for coverage by a seller under their homeowner's policy. So this is the only product that I'm aware of out there for sellers to use for a limited benefit or any type of benefit to get these claims resolved. And here, another weird statistic, not only have we entered the twilight zone, but now we've entered an even more bizarre dimension that in Denver, the Denver metro area, there are more million-dollar homes sold every month than there are homes of $400,000 or less. That just amazes me. So for this past month of March, there were 429 closings of $1 million and over in real estate. And to compare that, there were 241 homes that closed in the $300,000 range, 29 in the $200,000 range, and there were 3 for less than $200,000. So we're seeing very expensive homes moving. Those homes have very expensive appliances. So if those appliances break down, this is the product that those buyers, sellers, and even real estate brokers can benefit from.
That's crazy. We're seeing track homes in the $1 million range. It's crazy. Hey, talking about obviously being a seller's market, and we're getting multiple offers on pretty much every house. What are some of the issues you see with the multiple offers?
Yeah, so one of the more common claims that are cropping up that I never thought I'd see in my career when I started defending real estate brokers was where a seller accepts multiple offers. So here in Colorado, there are software programs. One of the more popular ones is CTM e-contracts that real estate brokers use, in which it's very convenient to just forward offers as they come in to the seller. Unfortunately, a lot of sellers don't appreciate or understand what they're getting. Sometimes they think, oh, I need to acknowledge an offer. And so then they'll start clicking and placing their electronic signature on these contracts. And then they hit send and it goes out. And what they've done is they've accepted multiple offers to sell the same home. And of course, who do they blame? Frequently, they blame their real estate broker for not explaining exactly what they're getting, instructing them not to sign anything. And so what I've seen brokers doing is that instead of forwarding these contracts, they will now put together a spreadsheet and summarize the contracts. Another issue we're seeing is, brokers really want to go the extra mile and help out their clients. And so they'll work with buyers to write love letters to try and convince the seller to sell to this particular buyer. And that's also problematic because you get into fair housing issues. And so if, a young couple writes, oh, we can imagine our children running down the hallways to celebrate Christmas. Well, right there, you've got fair housing issues with age, religion, it just
Wow.
creates all sorts of problems. And so brokers have to be very careful when representing both buyers as to what they can do, how they can advocate for their clients. In addition, for sellers about information received, because you don't want to set your seller up for a fair housing claim. And you definitely don't want to set them up to have to pay somebody not to buy a house so they can proceed with one of the offers they accepted.
Wow, that's crazy. The love letters were so popular for so many years and got so many families homes, and now they're a detriment. So that's very interesting. So let's talk about the buyers for a second. They're obviously willing to pay asking price, and we're seeing over asking price. What are the challenges with appraisals and financing when they go above and beyond the list price?
Okay, that creates a lot of problems. One of the issues that I commonly see are appraisal gap terms that they will put into the offers. So it just creates a lot of uncertainty if the wording is not done precisely and clearly articulates what exactly is being offered. A lot of people think, well, I'll just put in a dollar amount above the appraisal and cover that. Well, it doesn't always happen as imagined or expected. Sometimes the appraisals can change, and then, well, is there still that gap? What's covered? How much of that gap? And so buyers see things definitely from their perspective, and sellers are thinking, oh, well, this is going to work out the way I imagine it. And sometimes it doesn't work out either way. So the problems I'm seeing with the terms like appraisal gaps is that the language that brokers will try and type in and the additional provisions creates a lot of uncertainty, creates a lot of doubt. And so if there's any any chance of things going off the rails, best advice is to have an attorney work with you in preparing that contract language, and just managing expectations. Um, you know, you got to talk to your seller or buyers, excuse me, if they're willing to do the appraisal gap. How much, where are those funds going to come from? If this offer gets selected, then you are going to have to perform, or you're going to potentially lose your earnest money.
Sure. Well, of course, in this frenzy, there's probably delays in getting inspections and appraisals. What kind of issues are you seeing, and how do these folks keep the transaction on schedule without it just going completely off the rails with these delays?
Yeah. Yes. So obviously, appraisers are in high demand at this time. Home inspectors are also in demand. And so, the sellers are expecting a quick turnaround time. They want to get to closing, the sooner the better. And right now, from the April statistics, the average days on market here in the Denver metro area is 13 days. And that's the lowest amount of time I've ever seen days on market since I've been practicing. And so sellers have these expectations that things are going to happen quickly. That, look, I listed my property first weekend, I got 20 offers, 12 were for cash. So let's go, let's move it, let's get to the closing. And so they don't want to do the amend extends to drag things out. And so the buyer's agent is really going to have to be Johnny on the spot with making sure the deadlines are met, the objections are put in time. If the buyer does want to terminate, then they have to notify the seller to meet that deadline, and they got to give accurate, honest reasons for terminating it. So you don't want to set your buyer up for a bad faith claim or failure to act, fairly, and risk losing their earnest money. Because we're seeing sellers who are super aggressive and saying you missed a deadline, or you gave a false reason for wanting to terminate. I lost, so many opportunities. I'm going to take at least part of the earnest money.
Absolutely.
So buyers agents really have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they have a lot of work to do, but it's funny. Sellers are really calling the shots, it seems like, in this market. And when you have an inspection where there's repairs and stuff like that, a lot of them are saying, as is, and if you don't like it, we'll go to the next 7 offers. What can buyers agents do to protect their buyers and themselves if the sellers agree to waive repairs or even waive an inspection? I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there, right?
Yes. So that's another type of contingency we're seeing, is that in order to make these offers more attractive to the seller, buyers are agreeing to waive inspections or objections, including health safety issues. But the buyer's agent has to advise their client, look, I know you really want this home. I know it's competitive. I know this is, your 10th offer and the previous 9 have been rejected. I know you have a deadline and need a place to live because your kids need to go to school and all that. But you have to go into this with your eyes open and know what you're buying. You still need to get that inspection. You still need to, figure out if there are foundation or structural problems, because you might be buying a bigger headache than not having a home for the time being. So still got to be advised and recommended by the buyer's agent to get inspections done. Mm-hmm. Similarly, the seller, even though they're thinking they're selling the home as is, needs to know that they still have a duty to disclose latent defects or any adverse material conditions they have actual knowledge of. So, the seller's agent still has to counsel the seller as to their duties and disclosures to avoid having lawsuits brought against everybody.
Sure. Well, and we know that agents, and we even see it on the TV shows. I joke about the $1 million listings and stuff like that, and how in the past it was stuff just fell into their lap. And I think we all agree agents are busting their rears more than they've ever done it. To get a listing is impossible. But then, when you're bringing buyers to the table, there's 7 offers. How do you compete with those other ones? And agents are working hard and deals are falling apart. So is it common that agents, become the target of a disgruntled buyer or seller if a deal falls apart? And what can an agent do to protect themselves when and if it falls apart?
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, commonly brokers are the target because they have E&O insurance. Also, sellers are also a target because buyers think I paid a premium, they've made a lot of extra money, they have equity, they should compensate me. And so the best way is for brokers to do what they do, to act as the professionals they are, understand their duties, their obligations, be there to counsel their clients, provide information on issues that they actually know about, recommend, experts on issues that they know about but are not experts themselves in. So yes, and they got to be aware of the deadlines if you're a buyer's agent, of when to terminate, how to terminate, and they got to be really careful with drafting amendments, extensions. For example, we had a case earlier this year where the buyer was having problems meeting the deadline due to trying to get loan approval. The seller was getting anxious. They wanted to close. And so one of the brokers wrote an amend extend with this language saying buyer agrees if contract is not closed by February something 2021 and a business day, seller reserves the right to put property back on market and will take backup offers. So 2 very different ways to look at that additional provision. The seller's thinking, okay, the contract's terminated if you do not close.
Right.
Buyer's thinking, okay, yeah, if I don't close by that date, they can go get backup offers.
Right.
So, and of course, in this instance, the seller went ahead and accepted a backup offer. So now the seller's under contract twice for the same property. And buyers are so desperate to hang on to anything they've got under contract. And even if they're missing deadlines, that they're going to go out and hire a lawyer to sue the seller for specific performance. And of course, the brokers get dragged into that. Yeah. So you got to be very careful on when a contract can be terminated, when it and how it can be extended. So again, it's just got to be extremely careful, constantly diligent, working really hard. And I feel bad for sellers agents now. And the write-up I did for Crest, one of the issues we're seeing that I didn't cover in the article is that sellers agents are now getting beaten up by the seller. The seller doesn't want to pay the commission they agreed to in the listing contract. And so I've gotten calls, desperate calls from brokers at the closing table saying, we're closing, and my client, the seller, just told the title agent not to pay my commission because the seller believes I didn't work hard enough or I didn't do enough to deserve the 2% or 1.8 or 2.2% commission. And so again, it's all about managing expectations, working with your client. And so now we're trying to figure out how we deal with those commission disputes.
Sure. Let me ask you a question about those addendums and extensions from that those agents. Is that a form that the state has the real estate board has, or are these forms that they're writing themselves? And is that something that they could use the risk management services at Crest for to review before they, go down that route?
So a couple questions. So yes, the Colorado Real Estate Commission has approved an amendment extension form that are used to modify contracts. There are also forms for notice to terminate. So in Colorado, brokers are not allowed to practice law, and drafting contracts is considered practicing law. So the Colorado State Commission has developed forms in which brokers are allowed to fill in blanks, provide very basic additional provisions, and under the Conway-Bogue case, which was decided back in the 50s, this was the compromise that was reached. So yes, it is a form of practicing law, but it is very limited to filling out form contracts. Your question about, is that something that we review as part of the Crest risk management program? Not typically. Typically, we deal best with potential claims and how to avoid claims. We're not transaction lawyers, we're litigation attorneys. From time to time, we do get involved with some transaction issues, but it's always best if the broker refers their client, whether it be a buyer or seller, to an attorney if it is more involved in terms of contract drafting than just a very basic, simple additional provision or fill in the blank. And so, one of the things we frequently tell is you have a duty to advise your client to talk with an attorney. This is a legal issue. You are not allowed to practice law. Tell your client to go get an attorney. Because when we get the calls, we can't really ethically advise buyers or sellers as to what their rights are. We can try and help the broker to manage their risk, but that's where our focus is under the risk management program.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. Let's talk about contingencies. We know that they are important in offers. Can you talk a little bit about the different kinds of contingencies you're seeing and what agents can do to make sure they are clearly communicated to stay out of trouble?
Yeah. So again, the types of contingencies we see are the appraisal gap, the contract to purchase, contingent upon the buyer's sale of their property. So it creates like this domino effect of buyer sells their property, buys property from seller, and then seller buys another property. So we routinely see those types of setups. Also, we see contingencies where a cash offer will be made, but the buyer is reserving the right to check out, see if they can obtain financing if they want to go that route. So again, it is extremely critical that the agents drafting the contracts, the amend extends, provide clear language. And if there's any chance that things can go off the rails, again, it's always advisable to consult with an attorney and have that attorney, a transaction attorney, prepare any complicated additional provisions. Other contingencies we're seeing is post-closing occupancy, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But buyers are getting really creative. They're changing expectations, and that requires some flexibility. Now we're seeing where buyers will team up and jointly buy a property together. So they can't afford or can't find or get under contract a home, but if they combine their resources, they qualify for the $1 million home.
Sure.
And so we're seeing these creative things like that. And those expectations have to be worked out, buyer to buyer and then also buyer to seller.
Sure. Well, and talking about and following up on contingencies, it's so easy to sell. And let's say I've just sold my house. It was really easy to do so. But one of the contingencies may be that I need to find something else. And we
Yep.
all know how difficult that is. So how are those contingencies dragging a deal down? And what advice do you have for that?
Yeah, so a lot of buyers want to take advantage, I'm sorry, a lot of sellers want to take advantage of the market now and sell their home, and they think, fine, I'm just going to upgrade. I'm going to go to that next level, that next price bracket, cash in on the equity I have and get a bigger and better home. And that's great. But, from the statistics I showed you, everything is very, very contested. It's very competitive out there. And it's not as easy to get into the $1 million home or the $900,000 home as it had been in the past. And so, again, the seller's agent needs to work with the seller and get them to understand, educate them on market conditions, and that it may not just be as easy as I sell my home today, I move out on the day of closing, and then I move in and close in on the new home. And so this has to be communicated, because we've gotten those claims, door licensing complaints against sellers agents saying, my agent couldn't get me out of this contract that I signed, and I've got no place to live, no backup plan, and my job is still here in Colorado. And now I have to pay for a hotel that's twice as expensive. Or during the pandemic, we saw people who were trying to move to another home. Like, for example, we had a couple that lived in a semi-rural area, and they were going to buy a condo here in downtown Denver. And they thought they would be safer in the semi-rural area than in the middle of a metro area. And so they wanted to back out. And so then you get specific performance type claims. And we're seeing more and more specific performance type claims. I was talking to a real estate attorney who had never seen a buyer sue a seller to force the seller to sell the home in 30 years. And when I talked to her, she had 5 of those claims in the past month. So it's just really weird claims we're seeing now.
Crazy. Let's talk about, we've talked about buyers and sellers here and how they are moving and buying and selling. What about real estate professionals that change brokerages? What are some of the important things to remember for those folks to remember when they do that? And how about in the middle of a transaction that could be, a couple of weeks long? What if I move from Remax to another, to a Keller Williams in the middle of the transaction? What are some things that agents need to know and brokers need to know on that?
Yes. So not only is it sellers taking advantage of this market, but the successful brokers who are able to get listings, get deals done, and keep clients happy, find those investors who are willing to invest the cash in real estate here in Colorado. Those brokers are having a tremendous amount of job options right now. And so we are seeing brokers moving from one brokerage to another, or some brokers are just starting their own brokerages. And we all applaud that, and we all want to see brokers improve and do well. But there's a lot of thought that has to go into it, and you have to anticipate and manage your risk. So we're seeing conflicts between brokerages when one broker leaves to go to another brokerage. And sometimes it's not always clear in the broker's independent contractor agreement of, does the listing go with the broker? Who has duties to supervise as the employing broker that contract, including providing contract review, providing closing support, and where does that commission go? And how is that commission split out? Okay, so we're seeing those fights between old brokerage and old brokerage and new brokerage. And then there's expectations from the new brokerage that the broker is going to bring their book of business with them. So the broker has to read their independent contractor agreement, read the office policy manual, and understand the expectations of the brokerage they're going from to the brokerage they're going to. The other issue I see is where brokers find themselves in a no man's land of coverage under their E&O insurance. So if there was a closing at the old brokerage and the broker was under a group E&O policy, and then goes to a new brokerage, and then after the transition, a claim arises, there may not be coverage under the old E&O insurance. And so the broker has to do their homework. They need to be talking to the people at Crest before they make the move of, am I going to be covered under this policy for a future claim? Or, there's a potential claim that hasn't been made that I'm aware of. What's going to happen when I make that transition? So there are insurance products out there. There are tail policies. There are also individual policies. And so a lot of brokers don't understand when they read these policies. They think, oh, it says completed acts somewhere in the policy, and they don't understand or appreciate what completed acts means when they switch brokerages or switch policies. And so the brokers got to be calling up Crest, asking these questions, making sure that they've got coverage. Just because they have coverage to satisfy the Colorado Real Estate Commission and DORA regulations showing that they did have insurance, that doesn't always mean that insurance covered a particular claim in the past. And so brokers need to understand claims made, occurrence-based type policies.
Can you give me a temperature on how errors and omissions insurance plays in a real estate transaction? So obviously Laura and I are here in California. We're extremely litigious. And sometimes in a real estate transaction, we hear that the buyers say, oh, the other side has E&O insurance, so they have deep pockets. So let's go after them. What's the temperature in Colorado on stuff like that? Are they using that to maybe complain when they wouldn't otherwise?
Yes. So, and there's multiple factors that go into it. So we've got a lot of transplants coming into Colorado.
Sorry.
Thank you. And they bring their culture, their backgrounds, the way they do things from where they come from. They're also newcomers, and so the way they do things may be different than the way it was traditionally done here in Colorado. They don't have the community ties. And we also have a very, very proactive government regulatory body that oversees licensees. And you've heard me refer to DORA. It's the Department of Regulatory Agencies. And within that, there's the Division of Real Estate. And then within the Division of Real Estate, we've got the Colorado Real Estate Commission. We've got the Board of Mortgage Loan Originators. We've got the Board of Appraisers, who all oversee real estate professional licenses. And if you go to the DORA website, you will see that they have their mission right at the top that says, our mission is consumer protection. And they take that mission extremely seriously. And so we have seen a tremendous ramp up in the number of licensing complaints starting in 2007, 2008, right before the subprime mortgage bubble burst, with lots of fraud going on at that time, unfortunately. So that got cleaned up, but still people, buyers especially, and oftentimes it's broker complaints against another broker because of competition, envy, those sorts of things that we see. And so we see a lot of people thinking, I don't have to file the lawsuit right now. I'll just file the licensing complaint and let the government build my case for me. And then once I get the favorable investigation result and sanctions, then I'll use that for my lawsuit. And so it's a double barrel shotgun here for brokers and the risk of lawsuits, and then licensing complaints. And so I stay very, very busy. Thank you, Cress.
Well, crazy.
Even when the brokers don't do anything wrong, you don't want to take the risk with your professional license, which is how you make a living, how you support your family. It's also your personal and professional reputation of how you get clients, your standing in the community. And so we take all those claims very, very serious and how we manage the risk. So yes, the climate here in Colorado is very litigious, highly regulated, and you need to know what those regulations are.
Well, like we always say, you don't have to do anything wrong to be sued. And that's unfortunately, when you get into that climate where people are litigious, you open yourself up to that. So the $1 million question here, Jim, how do we get back to a market where it's great for buyers and sellers and there's 5 months of inventory? I'm not going to put your feet to the fire to say when, but how do we get back there? What's going to happen?
Well, several things have to happen. One, we got to get through this pandemic, first of all. And then we need to see where things are going to stand with regards, are people going to be working from home? Are they going to be commuting back to work? Or is it going to be a combination? I expect it's going to be a hybrid individual to individual type situation, employer type situation. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. And we got to get construction going again. We got to build homes. That's part of the problem is there's been a lag in new home construction since the bubble burst in 2012. And that's going to be hard to do in some places. Colorado, we run up against the mountains, and that's, engineering problems aside, you get forest problems. So forest fires can become urban fires, which we've seen in Colorado Springs in the past. So, that's a very complicated question, and I wish I had the crystal ball to answer that, but it's going to take time. It's going to be a multi-pronged approach. There's not going to be a silver bullet solution. We're going to have to look at everything should be on the table, from auxiliary dwelling units to multifamily residencies, to getting more development going, and that impacts legislation regarding construction defect reforms. So it's going to be a complicated, drawn out process.
Complicated and a complicated question. I'm sorry to put you on the spot there. It's like going to the doctor for your shoulder, and when you're there, you're like, my ear hurts too, and then can you check my elbow? So while I've got Jim on the call, of course I'm going to ask him that question. But Jim, I appreciate your time today. I kind of chuckle because I love your demeanor. It's just right here. It's calm and collected. And I just imagine outside those windows of your office, it's like a carnival. There's fireworks going off. People are running around buying and selling, and you're just so calm. And I appreciate your insight today and your feedback in answering the questions for all of the real estate professionals in Colorado. So I appreciate you very much.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity to work with you and with the wonderful people at Cress. Anything I can do to help the real estate professionals here in Colorado, I'm going to do it, because I see what they're facing every day. Their job is not easy. It is not easy at all, despite certain perceptions. And unfortunately, real estate brokers here in Colorado have a target on their back, and at some point they are going to see a door complaint or they will be sued or have a claim made. And my whole philosophy is I want to get them back to doing what they do best, buying and selling real estate instead of spending time with lawyers in courtrooms, judges, juries, because there is an opportunity cost to that.
Amen. Amen to that. Well, thank you so much for your time. Laura Prowse, back to you.
Perfect. We can see why Jim is such an asset. He actually lives and breathes Crest's mission statement as well. We don't want our clients focusing on litigation and everything that's going wrong in their lives. We want them to be successful, to get out there and work with their clients and build their business. So Jim, thank you. You and your team are a tremendous asset for us. And Dave, thank you as well. Great job. Really appreciated the questions, very timely, unfortunately very relevant to this market, but we'll see where we are in 6 months from now if we're doing this again on a completely different subject. So I just want to thank you both for today, for your time and just being so prepared and great dialogue. And to everybody who's watching, thank you for watching. And we do have this webinar. It will be on the Crest Insurance homepage. It'll be under their Claims Prevent blog. And I do believe, Dave, you will be sending this out as well. So hopefully we'll have a lot of people watching this because this is a lot of information. Again, thank you both. Very, very well done. Really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.